Ugh. Hey, we are live. Sorry about that. I was just complaining to Tag about the animals all over me while I was trying to get this going. Farmella 104, how you doing? Welcome to the Grumpy Acres live stream with Tag. Um, so we are going to talk about. Give me 1 second, Tag. It's been one of those days, man. They canceled work tomorrow.
What for?
Um,
For the storm?
for the storm. Oh, hang on a second. Oh, I just got an SOS from my father-in-law.
Okay.
Anyway, I will text Angela here in just a minute. So give me 1 second, folks. I literally just got a SOS from my father-in-law. I'm gonna call my wife and have her call him. Oh my goodness. You ever have one of those days, Tag?
Oh, I have them all the time.
Man, and she is out on the road right now. She's going to pick up some meat from somebody that needs some freezer space. We're gonna freeze dry some more. Hey, call your dad. Oh, okay, all right. I'm on my live stream right now. Say hi to Tag. Yoda says hi, Tag. All right, love you. All right, I apologize for that, folks. Crazy day, crazy day. Anyway, David Lord, thanks for showing up. Today's live stream, we're going to talk about lesser men and leaders. And Tag, let me explain how this came about, just so you know where I'm coming from. I was joking with some guys at work, and I was saying, I was talking about them, and I said I'm beset on all sides by the inequities of lesser men.
Mm-hmm.
And I stopped and I thought, oh my God, that sounded so egotistical. And then I started thinking about it. And how many times have you seen somebody who considers themselves our betters look down their noses at people and get that look on their face where they smell something nasty? Thinking about, and it usually happens. And admittedly, I'm biased. I'm biased because I'm a patriot and I'm a conservative. It normally happens whenever they're looking at somebody like us. And it got me thinking. I got, who are these people? Who are these people to think of us as lesser people? And who are these people to treat patriots and conservatives like this? And just other people in general, right? You know. And so I started thinking about it, and I was like, I really want to talk about this topic with somebody. And I thought of you, because you and I have had these conversations before, and I wanted to bounce this off you and get your thoughts on the subject. And hopefully by the end of the evening, we can come up with a way of measuring what we expect in people, I guess, if that's the right way to think about it. We'll see when we get there. We'll see when we get there. So am I making sense, or am I sounding like a crazy person?
Well, no, I mean, you make sense, bud. And, this is a super interesting topic. So I'm actually curious to where this goes to. So continue on, and I'll be happy to contribute when necessary.
Okay, so the first thing I thought about was, does a lesser man exist? So I looked it up, and there's actually a definition of a lesser man. It's somebody who is morally or ethically inferior. Mm-hmm. That is the actual definition of what a lesser man is. And I started comparing that with the people that lord their superiority over us, over other people. And I'm not talking just people on the national stage. I'm talking about people in our everyday lives. It's the examples of the celebrities that travel around the world. Rain Country, I got to put that one up. That's good. Where's the man button? The people that travel around the world talking about climate change while flying in their private jets that burn more fuel and create more carbon than the average person creates in a year. The politician that reprimands Americans for being immoral because they they refuse to use somebody else's pronouns, or they won't wear a mask. These people are taking up a moral position and making judgments, for lack of a better word. They're making judgments on people based on their biased opinion. And so, if a lesser man is somebody who's morally or ethically lacking, is it okay? I guess the starting point, is it okay to be judgmental on this? That's the first thing. Am I being a hypocrite, or are we being hypocrites if we're pointing out stuff like this? I'm just trying to figure it out, man.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I think I need to understand. I mean, I think this is a very interesting topic, and you use the word lesser men, right? And you didn't say lesser male, and so I think it's important to define what is a man, because if you don't, because at the end of the day, not all males turn into men.
Right.
If you go back into our early history, or even just human history, obtaining the title of man was a super sought after thing.
Mm-hmm.
And so, are we talking about lesser male, or are we talking about man?
We're talking about man.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, you know what? And that's a good question. That's a good question. In the larger sense, we're talking about man. We're talking about males and female, the human race. But in a minor sense, this is a follow up. This whole conversation wouldn't come into existence if it hadn't been for Spags and I talking about weak men and strong men.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what got me down this rabbit hole of thought. It's in the process of talking about this. Yes, we were talking about anybody, male or female, humankind that behaves like that. But more importantly, from our standpoint, it's important to point out men in particular. And I'm not gonna. And the reason I say that is because, I can make a judgment call about the behavior of a female, but I would rather have the women in our lives have this discussion. I would rather have them do something like this and talk about it, because I think it not necessarily that it would carry more weight, but it would be a little bit more insightful, if you know what I mean.
Yeah. I think when you're talking about lesser, the biological male, I think a male is a male, pretty much. A female is a female. I think what we do with our life is what determines whether or not we become a woman, or whether or not we become a man, and what virtues do we hold. And I know a lot of really shitty males.
Oh yeah.
More in fact than I know good ones. But I think I would add one step further, which talk about being judgmental. I think this is a really important thing, that great leaders are tolerant. And I think if you spend your entire life holding everybody to the standards you hold yourself to, you'll spend your entire life being disappointed.
Oh, absolutely. Rain Country says it really depends on what type of judgment one is talking about.
Mm-hmm.
We already used discernment, and that is scriptural. And that was something else that popped into my mind as I was reading source material on this whole idea was are we being judgmental, or are we being discerning whenever we're evaluating somebody, and let's just say it, on their worth. I'm a firm believer that all men are created equal. We all have an equal starting place, but our worth is decided by what we do with our lives. And I'm sorry, and it's not that I'm going to discriminate or treat somebody lesser because they haven't accomplished as much as I have, but if they're spending their lives in a destructive way, or not even living up to their potential, because I didn't live up to my potential. I honestly didn't. I really wish I could say I did, but I didn't. Are we being judgmental, or are we being discerning by making these distinctions? And I got a puppy on my lap.
Yeah, I think it depends on the distinction. If what you're saying is that, two males are not equal, I would disagree with that. I mean, I'm rephrase. Two men don't have the same value. I'm going to use your word. I would say that's inaccurate, because every life has the same value, but none of us are equal. You and I are not equal, Garen, and
right.
me and B are not equal. And It's what we do with it. Right.
Well,
and if what you're doing is you're talking about the measurement of a man, now you need to talk about the measurement of the man, and each person's going to measure up to that measurement, differently. And I think at that point you could certainly be judgmental if what you're trying to measure is that measurement of man.
See, and this is exactly why I wanted to talk to you about this, because when I say the worth, I mean the yeah, I meant what you just said. You just elocuted it much better than I did. It's the whole, the drug addict pedophile. I'm sorry, his worth, in my opinion, is not the same as mine. But that's not a judgment on his value as his life per se. It's what does he bring to the table as far as making things better? Does that make or clarify what I'm saying?
Yeah, this is crazy that we're going to go down this road. As time wears on, I have slowly over the last couple of years started to kind of change my mind on some things. And this would be kind of one of those topics, is it really a case of not living up to potential, or how much of it also in some cases could be, the early victims of, the New World Order and the Great Reset and all of these things? Because people, and I'm beginning to realize this as I got my ass kicked through the process. Right. And was that a fault of mine? I mean, yeah, it was my fault because I put myself there. It was my fault because I let somebody have that kind of control over me. But in the end of the day, I got my ass kicked. And so, I'm careful. I'm very careful to get into the, simply because I don't believe it, is the one person's worth more than another conversation. Okay. I just simply don't believe it. But what I do think is none of us are equal. And, some people are overachievers. Some people are underachievers. And again, the topic of this conversation was man. What makes a great man?
Well, and right? that kind of, hang on a second. Get down. The dog wants to be on camera. She's driving me nuts tonight, Tag. I guess that's where the next logical step in this conversation goes is what makes it. Okay, I'm going to say it. I know you don't like me using the term. What makes a man valuable? Right? What makes a man an asset?
An asset to whom?
To whomever. Okay, a positive,
well, that matters,
positive asset to those who around him.
So his family,
not a negative asset.
Yeah. So I think if you're talking about like your family, I think that one of the greatest thing about a man is his willing to sacrifice.
Okay.
And I'll give you some examples of that. So if the world continues to spiral the way down, the way that it is, and food gets tight, I can assure you my family will eat before I do.
Mm-hmm.
Just the way it is, because that's my job. Right. And so I think sacrifice is a big one. I also think confidence is a big one. And then also we talked earlier about tolerance, and, people, I get a lot of heat about this, about, people saying, you got to be a hard ass. No, you got to be a hard ass at the right time. If the fact of the matter is you can ask me, and this, G, you know me, but I'm the leader of my home. I'm 100% the leader of my home, and B would not argue with this. Mm-hmm. But then if that's true, why is it that she gets her way 99% of the time?
Well, because it's beneficial for you to follow her, I don't want to say direction. It's not like it's a complementary relationship that you guys have. You guys complement each other. You don't supplement each other. You complement each other. Mm-hmm. And that's part of being a good man is learning whenever you need to accept what others say, right?
But isn't it also the ability to say, even though I'm pretty sure, or even though I believe that I'm right, it's okay. I don't have to be, I'll give you some example. There's things that we built on our house. Okay. Uh-huh. That I can tell you, bud, with 100% certainty, I knew the outcome, but B was like, nope, I really want it to be this way. Cool. Rock on. And now go all the way back forward, and she'll say, I wish I'd have done that. But if I fight each and every battle, and if I have to feel like I have to push my will each and every time, it's just a miserable thing. right? So I think the ability to just say it's cool, and I love you, baby, and it's fine, and I'll sacrifice that, and who knows, maybe I'm right, maybe I'm wrong.
Well, and there's been times in our marriage where I knew exactly what was going to happen, and I let it happen even though I didn't want to. And it was a learning experience for both of us. It was humbling for me, and it taught Angela some very good lessons along the way.
Well, but the opposite is also true. There were things that Bethany wanted to do that I was kind of opposed to, but I gave in on it, and she turned out to be right.
Oh yeah. Oh, absolutely.
This is why tolerance matters. It matters in a community. It matters in a leader. It matters in all of it.
Okay, hang on one second, Tag. Hey, everybody in chat, listen, it's not that we're ignoring you. Tag and I get on these streams, and we tend to hit these trains of thought, and there's so many people in this thread that have chimed in with some really good comments, and it'd be impossible to get them all, Tag. If you see any in there, say something to me and I'll get it up on the screen. Well, you should be able to get it up on the screen too.
Yeah, I don't know if I can or not. Let me look here.
We are streaming this on Grumpy Acres and on Life Done Free at the same. There you go, and on Life Done Free at the same time. So we're trying to get this message out to as many people as possible, because Tag, I think now, especially now with everything that's going on in our country, around the world, that having good leaders in place, not at a national level, but just locally and in our communities, in our circles, in our families, is going to be of paramount importance. Mm-hmm. I can't think of any other time in my entire life, not just my adult life, my entire life, where I felt convicted that this is something, especially when it comes to men, we should be promoting and helping get men to understand how to become true leaders in their families and in their communities and everything. And you started the whole community movement. You got Angela and I into the community movement, and it's just elevated itself so far in our lives, it's not even funny. So this whole discussion about leadership and morals and ethics is really important. And so you said tolerance is important in becoming a man of worth. Let's just put it that way. How's that?
But I also think men are important in becoming a man of worth.
Okay.
I would actually argue that boys, particularly young boys, between the ages of 1 and 2, really probably have the hardest time, because they have to break that identity that they've had with their mother since an infant. For a girl, it's much easier because they already relate to their mother, right? And they'll never break that. But a man has to slowly begin to create his own identity, away from his mom. And this is why men in the home is so important.
Oh, absolutely.
Right. And so that's why I think it's really important to really focus in on the fact that becoming a man should be a sought after thing. And unfortunately, not all males, in my opinion, get there.
Well, okay, let's start that as the starting point of creating strong men and creating leaders. So young men, young boys go into adolescence, and they mature. Let's just put that they mature in adulthood. Other cultures, they've got traditions and they've got ceremonies that they do. You see the National Geographic stuff with the tribes, where they do all kinds of crazy feats of strength and bravery. Native Americans had different feats of skill and endurance. Western society. I'm trying to think, when we were kids, because we're almost the same age. I'm a little bit older than you are, but we came up basically in the same era. What did we do as a rite of passage as a young man to become an adult, or to become a man? I can't think of anything.
Yeah, but that's the thing. But it's not. It's just like lifting weights. You don't go into a gym and spend 2 hours lifting weights and come out and notice a difference. It's a long time. It's a long, period of time and pressure that molds that, and, men need purposeful struggle, bud. And because we've removed that purposeful struggle from a man's life, and, now he's in this weird situation to either go out on his own or revert back to his childhood, and there's a word, I don't remember what the word they use for that. But I pulled up a quote for you. When I knew we were going to be talking about this exact thing. I don't know if you know who Carl Jung is. You know who that is?
Yeah, Jung. Yeah.
Yeah. So he said, if the situation is dramatized, then there appears before you on the psychological stage a man living regressively, seeking his childhood and his mother, fleeing from the cold, cruel world which denies him understanding. Often a mother appears beside him who apparently shows not the slightest concern that her little son should become a man, but who, with tireless and self-immolating effort, neglects nothing that might hinder him from growing up and marrying. You behold the secret conspiracy between a mother and a son, and how each helps the other betray life.
The helicopter mom.
Yeah. And I just think it's so fascinating that the world has attacked masculinity and feminism, for that matter. I mean, I could go on and on about what makes a woman such an amazing, wonderful creature, right? But they've attacked it and attacked it and attacked it. And the problem is then what's left is this weak world and a whole bunch of males running around and very few men.
Okay, yeah.
In my opinion.
Simpler Times Homestead, there's a good book called Raising a Modern Day Knight that talks about being intentional with relationships and moments with your sons. And I think he brings up a good point. Having a father figure in the house. Somebody made a post earlier that I missed that said, two parents is paramount. That was essentially what they said. Two parents are paramount. So having a father figure in the house, and like you said, having some sort of trial, and that's what those tribal cultures do is they had trials that were important in their culture. In Western culture, becoming successful at raising a family and having a business or whatever endeavor you do is the trial, and having it handed to you either through a mother who ensures that nothing bad ever happens to you, or parents that indulge your every whim because they've got more money than they've got parental drive. That makes it so young men specifically in this conversation, it happens to young women too. You see it all the time. It takes away that drive that you were talking about whenever you're reading the young quote. So
Garen, I think again, it's time and pressure, and we need men to be strong men. One of my dad's favorite lines, and I used it with my kids growing up too, but he would, and I'll never forget it. And it really shaped me a lot, I think, is, he would always say, would you like a reason to cry? Because I'm about to give you one. Right. I mean, it's that kind of stuff that made me go, nope, I don't want a reason. Nope. I'll suck it up, buttercup.
Exactly.
And it wasn't that he was insensitive to my feelings. What he was saying is, suck it up, dude. Someday you're going to have to lead, and someday you're going to have to be a man. And if you're going to sit here and, cry and get upset because you tore your shoelace, you're in big trouble, dude.
Yep. I went beyond that, and I got the reason to cry several times when I was a kid. I was kind of a slow learner.
Yeah. And I think it's the absence of fathers. I actually blame the fall of our society largely on fathers. And because men lead, that's what they do. And, there's many a times in my life where where the veto card came out and I said, no.
Yep.
That's the end of it. I don't want to talk about it. The answer is no.
Yep.
That's that. But I think what people confuse is that position of power, let's say you want to say it, they confuse that because that position isn't a place where you can, hey, Tori, what's up, bud? That position of power isn't a place where you just run around throwing rules all the time. In fact, it takes completely the opposite. It takes that discernment, as people talked about. It takes that tolerance. The only way the no works is if you don't fight every single battle along the way. It's not just one side of the argument. It's the whole other side of the argument that's probably more important.
Right. Okay. So we figured out that pressure, just like whenever you're making a diamond, pressure and time create something that's hardened and
That's right.
For lack of a better word, beautiful. And I'm going to say, having in the military and in my business career, having served and worked under some really good leaders, some really good leaders. Good leadership is a beautiful thing to see in my book. It's somebody who is just naturally talented. I am so envious of envious in a good way. It's I want to emulate them, so how do we start, number one, evaluating how do we evaluate what a good leader is, and then how do we start creating environments so that young men and any man, any male, any female, anybody out there, let's just open this one up to everybody, so that anybody can develop the characteristics that allows them to become a good leader.
Yeah, I think the first thing I would do is walk in the room and say, anybody who wants to be the leader, raise your hand, and whoever raises their hand, they're automatically eliminated. That's where we
would never have a politician tag.
Dude, I'm going to tell you, I get a lot of people who say, Tag, you're the leader of this community thing. And I always tell them, I am no such thing. No. It's a whole community, and that's what makes the whole thing work. But I mean, anybody who understands what leadership really is probably don't want the job. And so you got to find the person who's willing to do the job, even though they don't want it.
Right.
And that will be a great start to what a leader is. But, it's funny. I had somebody contact me today about a piece of land here in our area, a brand new family. And, he said, hey, well, what questions do you have of me? And I said, well, let's just start with one. What are your opinions and what are your thoughts on conflict resolution? Because the way he answers that question to me will tell me a ton. Right?
Yeah.
So I think leadership's super, super hard. You got to be willing to totally give of yourself. And if you're going to, and I can give you all kinds of examples, bud, right here in our community. And I'll give you some examples. So let's say that the whole community gets together, and with all the new ones, all the old ones, all of that stuff. And we're going to do a giveaway for a new AR. Any of the elders that have been around a little bit who put their name in that hat probably aren't a good leader, because what they're doing is they're putting themselves in a position to take from the people.
Yeah.
In my opinion. And so I think it's a lot of those little things, but I think we can do it through things just like that. It doesn't make them bad. It's just not probably someone I would follow over a hill into combat. Right? Doesn't make them bad. It's cool.
Well, and that, there's a scene, I hate using movies as examples, but it was such a good scene, and it actually happened in real life in Band of Brothers, whenever the new lieutenant was gambling with the troops, and Captain Winters pulled him aside and he said, never put yourself in a position to take away from these men. And being in the military as long as I was, and going to military school, that was ingrained into us. The leaders eat last, and literally you eat last, but figuratively it's a metaphor for putting your troops ahead of you, because they're the ones who make it all run.
Yep. Well, and I think there's another piece to that too, that kind of comes out to our world today, which is, everybody, this journey of homesteading, self-sufficiency, prepping, whatever it is you want to call it, everybody's at a different stage. And it's very easy to be judgmental in that. And it's also, in my opinion, equally easy just to look out for them. And so we want to, as being a good leader, I think what we need to do is lean the favor in those who have the furthest to come. Right?
Okay.
To me, this is leadership. This is leadership 101. Bring up the bottom, bring up the bottom, bring up the bottom, bring up the bottom. Because if what we do is sit around and focus on the top, we'll never have anything.
What'd you say, Ted? What'd you say? Because we just locked up. I'm not blaming my internet. I'm blaming something you said that upset you too.
No, all I said is if we spend our time, we should be spending our time as leaders on the bottom. Bring up the bottom, bring up the bottom, bring up the bottom, bring up the bottom. Because if you focus on the top, you'll never have anything.
Right.
Or
if you set yourself aside from that too, there's another thing, is setting yourself aside from doing what needs to be done, and I'm okay. I'm a firm believer in with rank comes privilege. So I understand that the as a leader, sometimes you get some perks from it. That's the officer versus NCO versus enlisted or lower enlisted argument there. I completely agree with that. But the leader that has those perks and gets down and does the hard stuff with their subordinates from time to time, really, in my book, it gives them some political capital.
So what would you say a leader's perk is in the civilian world? I'm not talking about at a company. I'm talking about in reference to our lives in, survival, in prepper, in homesteading, in freesteading, whatever it is you want to call it. What would be a perk of a leader?
Deferential treatment when it comes to making decisions.
Okay, explain
further. Their opinion weighs more heavily than other people's. In my book.
And that's a perk allotted to them?
No, I guess not. I guess
that's not a perk, bud. That's something that they've earned by their standing and by their actions, which again is leadership.
Well, and that's kind of the way those perks are earned, though. That's a perk that's earned, because I've had people that were in positions of leadership that I did not listen to, because they were not good leaders, and they would their decisions were detrimental to my subordinates. Actually, I had a couple of guys where I just told them flat out that we weren't going to do stuff because it would hurt the guys I work for, and the one guy literally looked at me and he said, "They'll do what we want because they need the job." And I was like, "You're going to lose everybody in the department. Everybody's going to quit en masse if you do this."
One of my favorite quotes, Garen, is that a leader's job is done when the people say, "Look what we did." And even a better leader is when he just freezes up on screen with a pucker up face.
Okay. Confidence level, skill. Okay. It's terrible. We got a storm. We got that storm rolling in, so I don't know if it's the storm or it's actually YouTube throttling the conversation. Local prepper says competence level, skill equals skill level, experience, motivation level, will equals motivation, confidence, and willingness. That's actually a pretty good equation. I like that.
Yeah. I think this one right here. Let me find it here. It was also a really good one from Tamra.
I think the leaders should listen to the older, experienced people before they make their decisions.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Why I think this is so smart is because a great leader recognizes that he's flawed and he don't know everything, or she don't know everything.
Right.
And it's dependent upon the people around them, both young and old. Right.
Well, and that's somebody posted earlier that a leader acts out of humility, and that's exactly what you're talking about there.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. So and so we've identified characteristics that make a good leader, but how do we promote that? Yes, ma'am, you the boss.
Yeah. Yeah. How do we promote specifically what?
Promote the development of these characteristics. You said time and pressure, but that's a very nebulous comment. How can we do that at a nuts and bolts level in our everyday relationships?
Yeah, well, I mean, here's the thing, but I don't think you can go and create that great warrior, after meeting them a week later. That's why I say time and pressure. Okay. Right. And at some point it has to come from within. It's so funny about, kids and stuff saying, "Hey, my parents should have motivated me more," or whatever it is, when the truth is it comes from within yourself. Mm-hmm. I don't need anybody to tell me to get up in the morning. I perfectly, I don't need anyone to tell me that something needs to get done to go do it. So I think it's time and pressure, but I think it's a lot of the little things growing up. when I would walk by my dad, he would trip me. Seriously.
Mine did too.
You know, when my sister would walk by, he would pat her on the head. And people can say this is, oh, well, that's not fair. Or you were molded because he treated you one way versus the other. But at the same time, you know, if you know, my daughter, and I can use my kids as an example, you know, if my daughter gets upset, she's super emotional. She wants hugs. She wants love. She wants all of those things. When my boys were growing up, if they got upset, they would throw their truck. It's just different.
Yeah.
And, you know, we need that male influence, that man influence about, you know, you want a reason to cry. And we need more and more and more of that. And it's okay to say, suck it up, man.
Yeah.
You know,
See, mine as a teenager was, my dad was always my coach, because my dad was a professional coach in high school and college, at the college level. And so he was always my coach in football and baseball and everything. And he held me to a much higher standard than he did everybody else on the team. And it made me a better athlete growing up, but it also gave me, it molded me into the person I eventually became. And for the longest time, I resented him for it. I couldn't understand why he expected so much more out of me than everybody else when it was a team activity. But by doing that, and I'm going to use myself as an example here, you know, I became a very good football player. And then I would, as I was growing up and I was one of the younger players on the team, I was always made to go against the older, more experienced upperclassmen. And they used to beat the snot out of me. I would come out of football practice with muddy footprints up my jersey and on my helmet, you know, because they were literally running over me. But as I got older, I started going against the younger guys and making them better. And I think that's one of the key thing. And I'm not saying this to elevate myself, so don't think it's anything like that. But that's one of the key things about a leader is they will elevate the people around them. You know, I'm going to use another football analogy. Tom Brady, not the best quarterback, not the best quarterback in as far as skills go, but he made everybody around him a much better football player. And that made him a leader in the NFL and on his team, because he elevated the people around him. And I'm sure you saw it in the military too. And I saw all kinds of leaders that elevated the people he was around him.
But see, I think that there's
the best leaders.
I think he's frozen.
To follow when they need to. Yep.
You know, one of my favorite quotes in life is, a leader's job is done when the people said, look what we did. And I think if you asked some people, they would say that leadership is people do the things I want them to do because they fear me. And then the next person's going to say, I think leadership is that, you know, people do what they do because of money or whatever it is. But at the end of the day, real leaders, what they do is they empower. They put their own ego aside, they step out of the way, and they empower. Yep. And that's it.
I agree. That was one of the things I was reading about leadership, getting ready for this. And somebody made a commentary. He said that, you know, history's littered with people who were quote unquote leaders who are actually tyrants and dictators. You know, that's not a leader.
But here's the thing, but the best leaders I've ever known in my entire life, you never knew they were the leader. They weren't on the front, you know, raw. They weren't any of those things. You know, there was a lot of dictators that were like that. And there was a lot of, you know, power hungry people that were like that. But the absolute greatest leaders I've ever known in my life, if you stood in a circle with 10 people, you wouldn't be able to pick out which one they were.
Yeah.
You know, that's crazy. But
well, and that's one of those, that's being around people that, you know, what we run into is not being able to tell the forest from the trees. You know, you inherently are drawn to these people because of the characteristics that they show. And they're good leaders, and you don't even know it. I know exactly what you're talking about. I've known some people like that in my life too.
Yeah, they're not rah-rah. That's not how they do. What they do is they coach. And when someone says, hey, you're the boss, they go, no, I'm the coach.
Yeah.
You know, when they get into a spot where someone did something wrong, it's a one-on-one moment about, have you considered this? What's the lesson in this, or whatever it is? They're just not in the face of, you know, charge. It's just, I mean, that might be in the military, but in the civilian world, I'm telling you, the greatest leaders are actually typically pretty quiet,
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you what, one of the most important things that you ever told me and Angela, as far as I'm concerned, was we don't teach, we share.
That's correct.
We
That's correct.
We share our experiences. And for anybody that's never heard that idea before, basically the way Tag explained it was, by telling people that we are teaching them, we are putting ourselves in a superior position to them. When what we want to do is we want to share our experiences so that we can lift everybody up at the same time.
The most success, I promise you this is true, the most successful boardrooms in the country, the tables they sit at are round. And for a reason.
Yeah.
I promise you. You want to see, and it's so funny, you want to see a company that will struggle, or a poor run company, not in every case, but in a lot of cases, go look in and look at their boardroom. And I can tell you a lot, because if there's a head of the table, they're not a team.
Mm-hmm. Well, and it took me a long time. It took me a long time to figure out that dynamic.
It's so important.
I'm not gonna lie, man. In the corporate world, I'm kind of a bull in a china shop, and kind of oblivious to a lot of that stuff. And being extremely good at my job kept me from getting fired multiple times. Let's just put it that way. Tamara says the best boss I had would listen to their people, even if they couldn't change anything, and would get right in there and help you if they could. Yeah.
I would take that a step further. The best bosses listen to their people, but then also hold their people accountable and say, okay, you got this bitch, you got this complaint. What's the solution? Or are you just bitching? Which one is it?
Those are the guys that I usually dealt with. Is like, you're really good at telling me what's wrong. Now provide a solution.
Yep.
And that's one of the things. That's why we started using the black pill, white pill analogy. Mm-hmm. Because it's really easy to sit there and talk about everything that's wrong in the world today. But if you're going to throw a black pill at somebody and force it down their throat, whether they want it or not, you better give them a white pill in response to it, so that they don't feel completely overwhelmed. Mm-hmm. And that's one of those things. That's one of my pet peeves with the patriot community and the Second Amendment community right now is there's so many people slinging black pills with absolutely no solution in mind. That's one of the things I like about the whole community building idea and the freesteading idea is it's giving answers. It's giving possible solutions to everything that's going on, and whether people take them or not, it's their choice, Yeah.
Skane's girl, I'll post this real quick, but I think she's exactly right on this. I think that at the end of the day, they want to make men not men and women not women. And, they want to keep us separated. They don't want us to be, individuals. They want us to be that, that soldier that the Prussian school system designed all those years ago. Mm-hmm. And when you talk about what can you do, let's start fighting it right here. Let's celebrate what a man is. Celebrate him as the king of his castle, as she should be. And at the same time, celebrate her as the queen of her castle. Yep. And in all of the wonderful things that make them so special. I'm not homophobic or anything like that, but I wouldn't want to be married to a man. I like what a woman is, Mm-hmm. I like that feminine, good smelling thing, that shaves their legs. Right.
I don't understand why women like us, seriously, because
I don't either.
We're hairy, smelly. We make funny noises at inopportune times, so I agree with you. Let's see what Big Kid had to say.
Yeah.
Good real bosses give their people just a little more responsibility than the individual thinks they can handle. Of course, the boss usually knows that an individual can handle it. I am reminded of a certain young lady that was learning to shoot an AR. Mm-hmm. I remember that very vividly, because that was probably one of the best examples of that concept I've ever seen in action. Yep. So for anybody, Okay, I'm going to tell this story, and Yoda just got home from her errand, and I don't know if she's listening to this or not. So if she is, there might be a nasty comment, or she's going to come barging in. All right.
It was fun.
We do range days as a group. We get together and do a little bit of shooting, do a little bit of drilling. Back when ammo didn't cost you an arm and a leg, but I had been trying to teach Yoda how to shoot an AR for several years with no success. Just could not get her to do it. She was uncomfortable with it and just would not do it. And I was trying to do it there at the range. I was working with her, and she was getting frustrated. And Tag came up to me and he goes, hang on, you step aside and just let me show her. And within 10 minutes, Yoda had the gun up and was crying, tears running down her face, just so mad at Tag because he was pushing her outside of her comfort zone and pushing her outside that self-imposed limit. And she's literally sitting there pulling the trigger, banging still, and going, "You're such an asshole, Tag." Sorry for the language, but that's exactly what she said. But by the time we were done, within 15 to 20 minutes, she was banging steel like the rest of us. And to this day, she can still shoot pretty good. And we haven't been doing any shooting of any sort, like any major shooting, for what, 2 years now, 3 years maybe, ever since the whole thing happened. So that's a perfect thing. Push people outside their comfort zones. I used to do that when I was youth coach, and I'd make the kids draw a circle in the dirt, and then I'd push them out of it, and I'd say, okay, now go do what I told you to do.
Well, I think out of our comfort zone is the only place we grow. And I think that one of the leader's job is, they say there's a butt for every seat. And at the end of the day, G, I recognized really quick that you were not going to make ground with her that day. You weren't going to do it. And that's not a burn on you. No. It's the same reason why I don't teach B. It's the same reason. There's a butt for every seat. And I think you have to be able to recognize that. And then, put everybody in a position to succeed, be able to highlight their strengths and then hide their weaknesses and work on them behind the scenes.
Right. And I have become a firm believer that men and women, whenever the spouse needs to learn something, they should not be the one teaching them. Yep. I give the advice all the time. Somebody says, well, specifically in the prepper world or homesteading, I want to do this, but my spouse doesn't want to. What can I do to get them to do it? And my response is don't, because you can't do anything. What you do is you find somebody that they don't have to like them, but they at least have to respect them, and have that person broach the subject with them, and that's one of the things about leadership is knowing what angle to take and where to apply pressure to get the most out of people. Because I've been a leader in a business environment. I was a leader in the military, and knowing when, where, and how to apply pressure to somebody to get the best performance out of them is really something that's hard to learn. Stephanie says, I'm afraid of responsibility. It can be difficult to raise my expectations. Oh, and Stephanie, you're right. So I am my worst enemy in that respect.
But I highlighted this comment because I think it's so right. But I think that's kind of one of the roles of men, right? Is to set the tone. I think the best, and I love this comment. The best way that I've ever heard it explained is that everything that you give a woman, she receives, multiplies, and gives back. Right? You give her a house, she gives you a home. Right? The way that they're wired, and so I think that raising those expectations take trust. Right? And so if the person, Stephanie, that you're talking to, if you had an immense amount of trust in them and they proved to you they would never take from you, right? And they had all of that respect for you, it'd be much easier to raise that level of expectation and for you to feel comfortable in that level of expectation.
Mm-hmm. Oh, my blushing bride just made it into the chat. She missed the story. Thank God. Hopefully she doesn't go back and watch. Yeah,
I promise you, she remembers the story.
Oh, she does. She doesn't like me telling it. She does not like me telling it.
Yeah.
Which
Well, it was so important.
I don't understand why she doesn't like that story, because it's such a great story, and it shows the interaction between everybody in our group, and it shows the dynamics that we should be striving for. Well, she's on vacation, Tambra. She's on vacation like always.
Yeah, she's on vacation, Tamara. What she's actually doing now is she is getting ready to make soap with her loofahs. And so she's skinning the loofahs and harvesting the seeds right now. And then she'll cut the loofahs up, put them in her soap bowls, and make soap around them. So they have built-in scrub pads in the bar of soap. But anyway, that's what she's doing.
Did you guys raise loofah this year?
Oh, a ton. Yeah.
Yo.
Yeah.
Did you try eating any of them?
No. We don't grow them from that. We grow them for scrubbers, sponges, that kind of stuff. I've never eaten one.
Oh, you should. Whenever they're young, they're really good. Anyway, that was it. Yeah. That was a quick sidebar. Okay, so I guess now the question is how do we I don't know how to put this without it coming out. How do we identify leaders in our groups? How do we as parts of a family, well, as a family, we already know the answer to that, but as part of a community, how do we identify people that are leaders? How do I identify people that are toxic leaders? Bug out popped in here just a second ago and said hi. And he came up, he said something, we were having a conversation one time, and he came up, we were talking about energy vampires, and he started talking about toxic leaders and what they did to an environment. But they weren't, bug out if you're still in here, it wasn't toxic, it wasn't energy vampires, it was another phrase that you learned, that what they do this before they become energy vampires, and they just suck the life out of all the effort, basically.
I've always referred to those as the virus.
The virus. Okay. So how do we identify between those two? Because the virus people, they can be pretty
but it's easy.
They can be charismatic.
They can. But see, here's the thing, actions speak louder than words.
Okay.
And at the end of the day, but I have a million little things that, little games that I can play. Like, for example, I'll tell you a funny story. There was a guy who put on one of the very first ever Midwest preparedness projects. And this was in the very, very beginning. This was like number 2 or 3. And what we used to do is a new person would put it on each time, right? You remember those days.
Oh, yeah.
Anyway, so we were at Bartertown, and I had a whole bunch of military gear that I intended to just give away. I'll make whatever trades I can make, but I really wasn't married to it, and I would just give it away. So whatever I got was fine. And I thought, what a great experience. I want to see what kind of offers I get. Do they care that I get a good deal too? Right? And I'll know. I'll know super quick. At the end of the day, if you will roll me to gain $20, then you're not a leader. Right? If you can't separate yourself, and you can't put yourself above everybody else, and you can't say, hey, I'm not taking from my people, then you're not a leader. And I think the only way you identify these is, again, back to time and pressure. Got to get to know them, got to hang out with them, got to put them in those stressful situations.
Well, and that's one of the things you mentioned, the Midwest Preparedness Project. That's one of the great things about get-togethers like that. You really get to vet people, and you've been doing those for 15 years now.
About 15 years, yep.
You and Data and some other people started it, and then Yoda and I came into that. We've been going, 9 years now, maybe 8 years.
Been a bit.
It's a great way to vet people.
Well, any of those events are. I think it's just stressful situations. I mean, I get the same thing from a homestead rotation.
Yeah.
And you get all out to somebody's homestead. I can tell you so much about somebody just by their work ethic. And when it's your 6 hours into the day, right, and everybody's hungry and sweaty and stinky, and it's been 90, to sit out, and I want the guy who at the 7-hour mark is laughing and joking and picking on people and having fun and throwing pine cones at each other, because when the shit hits the fan and when the suck comes on, that guy's embracing it.
Dude, I'll tell you what, man. Those the Tabletop Farm and their kids and some other people at the big wood cutting years.
Right.
My God, they darn near killed me trying to keep up with them. I was the guy, folks. I was the guy at the 7 or 8 hour. Did I lock up again?
You're back.
I'm back. I apologize, folks. It's better if this was YouTube. If this was YouTube live stream, this would have been this would have been over a long time ago. Seriously, StreamYard is just so much better. Yeah, but like I was saying, I was dead beat trying to keep up with them, man. I realized at that point that my days of being in the vanguard of all the hard work are probably slowly slipping behind me. You know, and I don't like that. I don't like that one bit. But I sure enjoyed sitting down there at the end of the day.
Oh man, it's all. But here's the thing, though. Everybody plays a different role, and my back's not as strong as it used to be. But the question is, you know, everybody can contribute, and are they contributing to their fullest?
Right.
I mean, a good leader looks in his team looks for the equality of opportunity, right? Does everybody have the same opportunity to succeed? And if you created the same opportunity to learn, but then the flip side is the poor leaders look for, you know, opportunity and or equality and outcome, right?
So apparently the people on my channel, whenever you put a comment up, they are not seeing it, and if I put them up, your channel's not seeing it. So
really,
you keep putting them up, and I'll keep reading them because you're catching them a lot quicker than I am. So you do that. So that's where that came from. Lucky Dame is they're coming from Tag's channel. Tamber says, I just got to be tough and do it myself. But when you get older, it's not absolutely. You know, and I guess that's another attribute of a good leader is knowing when to step out of the way.
Yeah. Well, and not all good leaders are men either. Let's make sure this is clear.
Right.
I know some great female leaders.
Oh, you know? one of the finest officers I ever served with in the Marine Corps was a butter bar lieutenant straight out of Quantico that was a female. You know, but it took us about 6 months to train her and get her out of that whole second lieutenant mindset. But once she did that and she realized the dynamic there, she became one of the best leaders I ever worked for. You know, Stephanie says it take 10 years to realize I can trust him. He got me to take care of the chickens and make the garden, but she's a slow learner. Well, welcome to the club. It's a very auspicious club too, Stephanie.
Yeah, and Stephanie, always remember, out of our comfort zone is the only place we grow.
Yeah,
and if I'm going to be good to Bethany, be right. If I'm going to be great to her, I have to not keep her uncomfortable, but I have to push her to that uncomfortable place often, or she's just never going to grow. She's going to settle into her ways, and that's that. She's too young for that, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm not gonna lie, man. I got out of the Marine Corps, and it kind of messed my head up a little bit. Well, no, it messed my head up a lot. And I probably had undiagnosed depression for about 5 to 6 years after I got out of the Marine Corps, and it affected our marriage and our family life really poorly because I was not doing what I was supposed to do as the leader of the family. You know, luckily we managed to make our way through that and have prospered since then. But, you know, it was really hard during that time, you know, and you see that. I think that's one of the big things, a big tell in the inner cities, you know, is the female leaders in the inner city churches, because men aren't standing up and doing the job the Bible says they should be doing. Tamara says, you better be good to her or we will come and get you.
Yeah. But I think this brings up a really, really good point, Bud, which is that part of a man being able to be a great leader is that he has the right partner, his wife. You know, for those men out there who have spouses that, you know, talk down to them or belittle them, right? Call them names, you know, all of these things that I know goes on in society today, that hurts his ability to lead. I don't know if all the ladies know this or not. Men don't like to be henpecked, right? And we kind of become recluse. And so I put the statement up here because I will be great to Bethany because she's great to me. And And, you know, when I come home and, you know, I don't talk to B about work very much or the things that go on like that very much, not because I want to keep her out of it, but because she's my sanctuary. She's my paradise. You know, I don't want to deal with it anymore. I want her to play that role. And so because she plays that role is why we make a good team.
Yeah. Yeah. Youre and I have worked on that. We have
It's hard, bud. Super hard.
Satan Hunter. I got out for 6 months after my first listen. Couldn't hack it in the civvy life and re-up, so I understand the mentality upon ETS. Yeah. And I was going to go back. I was going to go back and drive trucks in Iraq, get my commercial truck driver's license, because I put on a bunch of weight and I did no way I was getting it off at that point. But I was going to go drive trucks up until they showed the video on screen of the burning convoys of trucks and the American that got kidnapped by the jihadis, you know. And Angela was like, "Oh no, you're not doing that. That is off the table. We will be poor. We will be poor rather than have you go do that." You know, but I was all fired up to do that because I wanted the excitement and I wanted the purpose in my life, you know, because I wasn't doing it. I wasn't doing it the right way. Yoda says, tagging Garen constantly keep me out of my comfort zone. She learns a lot. And yes, she has since we started the whole homesteading effort back at the old Grumpy Acres, that lady has grown dramatically.
A lot.
She's a work in progress.
Yeah, well, we're all work in progress, but we're all flawed and we're all human. But she's grown a lot in the 7 or 8 years or 9 years, however long it's been since, you know, we've been hanging out together. Mm-hmm. But that's good. And, you know, the truth is I can't be good friends to Yoda if I don't push her outside of her comfort zone and vice versa.
Yeah.
Right. That's our job. If we're going to be good to each other, we should be pushing people to be, you know, for greatness. Right.
Yeah.
I think.
Well, and that was that, you know what, there's something else there's another thing that I thought about. So I made a short recently about choosing your friends. And if you're the smartest person in the room, you're in the wrong room. If you're the most moral person in the room, you're in the wrong room. You should be surrounding yourself with people who push you and expect more out of you. And Jess from American Roots Farm made a comment that we get the characteristics of the 5 people that are closest to us, that we spend the most time with, not that are closest, that we spend the most time with. And that's a great point as far as becoming, if you want to develop your own leadership skills and your own positive personality characteristics, surround yourself with people that are better than you are. And I started thinking about it. You know, most people, I reflecting on my own career, you know, I spent more time with 5 people in my life at work than I did in my family house, you know, my family life. Because, you know, and there's a point in time when I was working 60, 70 hours a week, you know, and so I was surrounded by these people who didn't have my best interest in mind. Mm-hmm. All they cared about was the work. And upon reflection, I started taking on the characteristics of these people. Mm-hmm. Silver lining. I never understood how a supposedly loved one is talked down to be made to feel lesser. Well, and you know what, silver lining, that goes back to the original point of this. The original point of this discussion was the fact that there are people in leadership positions in this country, and that's where I was going, but it filters down to our communities and our family lives. Yep. That in their minds are better than we are. Yep. The one that was just, oh my God, it was like a slap in the face. Gavin Newsom was talking about the Second Amendment and the court ruling that was coming down against something that he felt it should be the way it was, and he was like that. The supposed right of the Second Amendment, and he was talking down to people that believed in the Second Amendment, and that's what got me started on the leaders that talk down to us.
Yeah. You know? But I think silver lining right here sums the entire thing up. At the end of the day, if the person you're following does not make you feel better about yourself, you do not have a leader.
Yeah.
Period.
Absolutely.
Now, that doesn't mean that everything they say you agree with, and nor does that mean that they don't say things that, bother you or whatever from time to time. But if you look at the whole picture, if they're not making you feel better, about yourself, then they're not a leader.
Right.
Simple as
And
that.
I don't, this is going to make some liberal's head blow up, but I don't care what you say about Trump. He knew how to make people that were following him feel better about themselves and their lot in life. Yep. I mean, how many people at the bottom of the economic social scale felt better because of the policies and stuff that he did as the leader of this country? So whether you like the man or not, you cannot argue with results.
Well, and I think he made the people beneath him feel better. But I would even go so far. I'm sure Hillary felt better by not having to go to jail.
You said that, not me. Evie says the woke community is always degrading others and demoralizing people, yet fools continue to follow that group. That beats me. But you know what, Evie? That's absolutely true. And but it's also true on the other side, because think about how many people in the patriot community, and I'm guilty of this. I've been guilty of this in the past. The people on the right side politically do the same exact thing. So it's not a left, right, liberal, conservative thing. It's I think it goes way beyond that. And yes, Jules, he was a narcissist. Yes, Trump.
So I had to take my shot because I don't like the Republicrats at all.
Yeah. So yes, he was a narcissist. But, quite honestly, to show me somebody at that level who's not narcissistic, even a little bit. It seems to come with the territory at that level. You have to be a narcissist to go out and purposely seek that job. Yeah. Doesn't mean that they can't do good. It doesn't mean that it is what it is. Oh, I'm sorry. I missed the comment. Then again, this is why Tag's running getting comments up better than me.
Leadership, Bud, comes from a lot of places. It comes from the husband. It comes from the wife. It comes from a lot of places if everybody works together and realizes, that you cannot lead if you cannot follow. And, I don't think it's that complicated, to put other people first and to do some of those things. But it's just not. I mean, it's, and as far as the men thing go, men cannot leave the way they came in. If they come out the way they came in, they'll never be men.
Right.
It's just the way it is. So, and some males will become men and some won't.
Okay. So we've gone over an hour. Before we wrap this up, I just thought of something. I just thought of something. Well, we've been talking about leaders and how to lead. On the flip side of that coin, don't good followers make a leader better? Don't people that are following somebody, if they're helping this person be a leader, don't they help raise them up and make them a better leader? I mean,
if they're a good leader, that's true. I mean, because at the end of the day, it's so crazy how it works. I've run big companies, right? Mm-hmm. And I came to realize after years of doing it that I actually worked for my employees. It wasn't the other way around. And I got to a point where I didn't want to disappoint them. And so a good employee will put you in that position. But if all you care about is the title on your card, or all you care about is your advancement, or all you care about that, then I would say the answer to your question was no.
Okay. All right. Well, I was thinking about when I was on sea duty, I had one of the best group of guys in my fire team, and we were all the misfits in the detachment, but whenever anything needed to be done, our squad was the one that they came to get it done. And when it started, it was like, oh geez, why are we always having to do this stuff? But then I realized that it was because when they told us to do something, we did it and got it done quickly and properly. You know, they knew they could trust us. And the guys in my fire team made me a better leader through doing all that. Are you posting a bunch of stuff about Trump?
No, I'm just, you know, I just think the whole thing with Trump's so fascinating to me. And for the record, you know, K-Bonk and a lot of the other people, he was a far superior president to the dumbass we have today. But
well, he was far superior to a lot of presidents.
He did not clean the swamp. Fact.
Yeah, we've had that conversation. I'm to the point now to where I think it's impossible. It's the only way the only way it's going to be clean is if it self cleans through entropy, you know. But hey, that's part of the whole alternative economies and creating our circles and our and that's the whole point. And when you get down to it, having good leaders in this whole movement that we're trying to create through the communities and the alternative economies and being involved in local politics, that's what it's all about. That's why this conversation is so important, because we need to be able to develop good leaders within our communities and promote them so that we can get these things done. Simpler Times says, good leaders develop good followers to help the leader shine. A leader in turn gives credit to the team. Oh, absolutely.
See, this goes back to your question earlier. How do you identify a leader? Right here is a great example of how you do it. Go put on some big exercise, some big thing, and try to give someone credit. And if they push the credit away, you know.
Yeah.
If they go, yep, I am big and badass. That's right. That's me.
Well, and I think we've identified a bunch of little tells. I mean, there's a whole bunch of little tells that will show who a good leader is. Lucky Dame's calling it a night tag. One man will never manage cleaning the swamp. It will take the people. Absolutely, big kid. And that's why you know that's one of the reasons why Tag started freesteading, was so that we could create an environment where this type of conversation and these types of ideas can take root. You know, it's such an important thing right now. Lucy's dealing with 60-mile-an-hour winds and the possibility of pine trees falling on her, so she's having a hard time following us because her internet's not doing too good tonight. Who selected a Jezebel? I missed that part.
Oh, let me go back up. I'll get it again. There you go.
Yeah, I'm Ring Country, but who's she talking about?
Trump.
Oh, okay. Okay, all right.
Yep, I like this comment right here.
Jules says, but he's a fallible man, Tag, like all of us. He wasn't perfect by any means, and that's what this country needed. You know, I'm gonna at that point in time and that point and that place in history, probably right.
Except that he said he would. This is the part that people miss. It's perfectly fine to say I gave it hell and I fell short. And if he would have said, hey, I gave it hell and I fell short, I would have felt different about it.
See, and that's when he started losing me, because he started blaming other people.
Right.
You know, that's one of the things, you know, Jocko Willink talks about taking ownership, you know, and that's one thing a leader does. They own the mistakes.
That is correct.
I don't know how many times I have had to stand in front of the boss because somebody in my group did something stupid, and I had to suck it up and I had to take it. But you know what? That it does roll downhill, and I went and got the pound of flesh out of the people who deserved it at that point. But I didn't let the boss know that.
Yep.
You know, I had a couple of bosses that thought I was the worst leader in the world, but my guys never got in trouble. You know, they did a lot of extra duty. Do what?
That's your job. It's okay. But I think that's a good leader. A good leader will punish when he needs to, but then protect at the same time. You know, it's like to say, you know what, I can call my mom a bitch, but you can't, you know, kind of thing. Yep. You know, your team, you're going to protect them.
Well, you know? Kabak asked, what's a good follower? Can you develop them? We were talking about pushing people outside their comfort zones, You know, and that's the thing that what a good leader will do is they'll make people more confident and proficient, and by becoming more confident and proficient, they raise their level of expertise, and they make them want to follow. That's the thing. I know, at least in my case, it was.
Yeah, I think putting him in a position to lead also makes him a better follower.
This is true. This is true. This is true. I used to hate that.
Yep. Well, but what better way? You know, I mean, I absolutely learned to appreciate a leader's job way more when I was stuck in that position and went, wait a second. I thought I was just getting a cool business card.
Yeah.
Time out, you know?
Well, and that was one of the good things that the military taught me is one up, one down. You should be, just whether you're in a leadership position or a subordinate position, you should be proficient one up and one down the ladder in responsibilities, because you never know whenever, you know, somebody might get hit by a bus. Bug Out Channel says owning your mistakes is by far one of the best attributes of a leader. Absolutely. You know, that's I like I said, not always a big fan of the idea, but it's something you got to do. It's something you got to do.
I was notified by YouTube that you were live, by the way.
Oh, just now? Yeah. Well, if we get a bunch of people coming in, we know the notification will. You know, it's funny you mentioned that, because we did Spags and I's live, not the first strongman video, but not the second one, but the first one. I had several people say they didn't get notification at all. Mm-hmm. They didn't even know what happened until after it was over. Yeah. You know, Rain Country says there's often nothing more humbling than being put in a position of leading. Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Yep. It's crazy. You know, I right here in our community, Garen, I stress out sometimes because I don't want to steer people the wrong way. You know, I got new families who are moving in, you know, and hey, what do you do here? And what do you do here? And I'm like, oh, just a little bit, you know, because man, it's, you know, it's kind of a lot of responsibility, you know? And so it stresses me out sometimes.
Look, I'm in the position at my job right now because I got tired of being in a leadership position. I just wanted to be a follower. I wanted to come out here and work on my homestead and be a follower. You know, it's one of the reasons why I took a big pay cut. It's one of the reasons why I took in fact, this is the first job. This is the first job in my entire career where I took a downgrade in pay and position. Mm-hmm. But I'm much more happy. I'm much more productive. You know, and I'm becoming a better leader here on the homestead.
I love this.
That's right. As a manager, you have to take it on the job by proximity sometimes. Being a S umbrella freak. I've never heard that. Yeah. Never heard that descriptor before.
Yeah, I think that's a great one to add. You got to be a shit umbrella for your team. I love it. This is 100%. This is what you were talking about earlier, Garen.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, and I had leaders that did it for me, and I did it for some of my subordinates. You know, I ended up down in the bowels of the USS Ranger with boxing gloves on with somebody one time because it was one of those leadership things where I needed to get my pound of flesh, and this was the only way I could do it without getting everybody in trouble. You know what I mean? Yeah. Oh, who are you waving at?
Oh, LJC showed up. I was just waiting.
Oh, hey, LJC. There's a whole bunch of people in here that are coming from your channel that I've never seen before, and I think it's great having both these communities together and sharing this. I think if we do this, we do these lives from now on. If somebody's got a channel, I think I'm going to multicast to them every single time. You know, because this is good. Kabonk, if you're on tags, the other channel is Grumpy Acres Farm, and if you're on mine, it's Life Done Free. And I'll put the links to in the description on my channel. I don't know if you can edit the description on your channel once it posts or not.
Yeah,
but I'll put the link to Tag's channel in our description if you're not familiar with it. Go check him out. They do they're doing some great things. You know what, Tag? We're getting on 120 minutes. Dog Creek showed up too. He's another one. He's another one that we need to have a talk with.
Yeah, absolutely a good conversation.
Yeah.
What I really like about Dog Creek Farm is, he overcome a lot of tribulation to get to figure out how to get free. And if he can do it, anybody can do it, right? I mean, because his story, he started behind where 99% of the people out there will start. And so I really enjoyed it.
Oh yeah. Yeah. And then add to that he not only has he gotten where he is, but he's trying to develop a community out in Ohio, sort of like what we're doing here. And he's using Jason from a Sustainable or Kentucky Sustainable,
Well, Poultry for Life is here, and this is a lady who had to lead and take responsibility for her own health, and actually had to fire a whole bunch of doctors. There's a good story there too.
Really?
Yeah, if you get Potpourri for Life on and have her tell you about what it's like to fire your doctors.
Okay. Well, I think Youre and I were talking about it, and Youre mentioned Potpourri. And Potpourri, I'm sorry, I haven't gone out and checked your channel. Youre watches it, but I haven't been out there. But she was telling me how impressed she was with everything that you're doing. Yeah. Seriously. But okay, so you're doing your live tomorrow instead of Friday, aren't you?
Yeah, because Friday I have another commitment, and actually this is going to be 2 weeks in a row. This week I'll do it a day early. Next week I'll do it a day late because I'll be in Georgia at the Next Steps, creating a parallel society convention. And so this week it'll be Thursday. Next week it'll probably be Saturday. But then I'll get back to my Friday rotation.
Okay. Okay. So you got anything else going on around the homestead or anything else, that you're heavily involved with that's influencing people's lives?
Yeah, bud. I'm just about finished with the reloading room. I've been working on that for about the last week, and it's ready to go. I mean, I can reload today, which is fascinating because for the first time in a couple of years, I know where everything is, which has been pretty good. Been working in pod 4. B's making soap and, lips, chapstick and all this stuff that, she does. So we're just plugging away,
Yeah. I'm not going to lie. I'm jealous. Getting the pantry ready to go and finding all these things in boxes that have been missing for a year, just knowing where stuff is would just be so luxuriously gorgeous right now.
Yeah.
So
but here's the thing, like what we were talking about earlier, everyone's in a different place in their journey, and you're not the only person you're competing with yourself. And you have fought the battle against that, and I think you've won a lot. I'm a couple years ahead of you as far as time goes, right? I have a couple year head start. So,
and that's the hard part about it. And I hope if anybody in the chat can identify with this, is we used to be the people that were ahead. And that's the thing that threw me for a loop when I realized that. And I was like, oh my gosh, we're actually starting over. This is crazy.
Mm-hmm. How much better off are you today? How much more free are you today?
Oh, we're way more free.
It's not even the same realm.
No, it's and again, it's one of these things where we are our own worst enemy. Kabant just connected the dots from the SRF convention. Was that Tag or me?
Yeah, well, one of us he connected the dots to.
Yeah, because I was at the one in June and you were at the one in August.
Yep, and we're both going to be at the one in March.
Yep, we're both going to be there, and we're both giving presentations. Yoda's giving a presentation with me. Sweet Savior Words asked, I would like to ask everyone here to pray for the folks that are in a 200-mile radius of Palestine, Ohio. So much life being lost. Pray for all having to leave the area. The Amish affected. Yep. I was just talking with Vision Preparedness today. He's 175 miles west of there, and he was talking about it on our live stream last night. As a matter of fact, I just posted. They've got a Ohio bug out weekend in June 2nd through 4th, and I just posted that on the freestanding calendar.
Yep.
And that's one of the things people on my channel are going to get me sick of hearing me talk about this. If you're not a member of Freesteading, go become a member of Freesteading. If you don't do anything on Freesteading at all except for these two things, you will be better off. Number one, go join your state page. You will get to meet people that are in your state. Literally, when we were at Back to the Land Festival in Tennessee, we were talking around the campfire Saturday night, and I was talking to one of the guys. He was a subscriber on our channel, and somebody came up and started listening to us, and they put it 2 and 2 together. They were both on Freesteading, and they both lived within 25 miles of each other.
Mm-hmm.
So through Freesteading, but neither one of them was on their state page. They got on the state page after that and started making more connections. So that's the first thing. And the second thing, go check out the event calendar. Go look at what's happening, what's being posted up there. There's live streams being posted. There's festivals. There's campouts. There's classes. There's all kinds of stuff. And if you're somebody that puts those together, get on there and put your event on there, because you're going to be. How many people will that expose them to, Tag? I don't even know how many people are on Freesteading now.
About 16,000.
About 16. So about 4,000 more than the last time I asked you.
Yeah.
So you can't beat that. You can't beat that type of networking there. And hey, in my mind, that's the most important thing that Freesteading is doing is
community. With community, everything's possible.
Yep.
Without community, there's a lot that isn't possible.
Absolutely.
And, hey, before we get off though, I want to also throw the prayer wars out there for Rain Country here, because not all prayers that go out are because of bad things. Some are for good things, and I know that Rain Country's got some really neat opportunities in front of them if it works out that would help them live freer and move closer to all of their ultimate goals. So let's send a prayer out to Rain Country today too, that their dreams are fulfilled. Huh?
Yep, absolutely. Okay, well, we, like you said, we're just trying to get ready for Self-Reliance Festival. If it,
I haven't even thought about that one.
but you're a heck of a lot busier on that front than we're, if it goes like we hope it goes, it's going to open up a lot of opportunities for us, and that's the most important thing. Storm Rider, I'm 80 miles from train acid and wind path, western Pennsylvania. Brother is 13 miles away from the incident. Scary little. Oh my gosh, I can't even imagine. Cannot even imagine that. So yeah, but that's what we got going on. Then just plugging away. I'm going to start working on I got tomorrow off because of the snow. I think I'm going to start cleaning up the second bathroom and ripping it out so I can get that portion of the rebuild done. And I take some time and shoot some videos and do all that stuff. But that's where we are. So listen, folks, we're rolling up on an hour and a half, and I like keeping it that short. I'm not the animal that Tag is when it comes to live stream. I have a hard time doing a 3-hour live stream. Seriously. I have a hard time watching their Friday nights, folks, because I get tired. I'm like, man, I don't know how you guys do it. Seriously. I honestly don't.
Yeah, it's all the audience, man. They keep me pumped up and keep me going, and they help me pick on, B, which is always fun, right?
Yeah.
Always.
And
that's all. It's easy.
So listen, you guys, neither one of us are experts in this, but if we provide you anything to think about, just run with it, man. Take this and try to develop the leadership characteristics in your own life. I think I'm gonna post the Marine Corps leadership characteristics on my community page. I don't think I did that. I think I'm gonna go ahead and do that tomorrow. But just take it and run with it and develop your own leadership skills. Try to help other people develop theirs. If you're not a leader, be a good follower. Help somebody develop into their ultimate potential, or however you want to put it. Tag, you got any final words? You got anything you want to leave with?
But there's so much that I would say about this. I think the first thing is be humble. Be tolerant. Not everybody's you. If you hold everybody to the standards you set for yourself, you're going to spend your whole entire life disappointed. Don't put yourself in a position to take from the people that look towards you. Just be a good person. Don't be an ass. It's easy. It's not that complicated. And then also, to top all of that off, don't forget that with community, everything's possible. And, we all play a lot of roles, and you cannot lead if you cannot follow.
Absolutely. And if you do fall into a leadership position, I was getting ready to reply to that. If you do fall into a leadership position, take ownership of it. You know what? If you're need to talk about the USS Ranger. There may be a USS Ranger connection. That's always fun. That was the cool thing about Indiana Mike coming over for dinner when he was in town the other day. He was in the Navy. I was in the Marine Corps, but because I served on sea duty, we've got some shared experiences, not in the same place at the same time, but we tread some of the same ground and sucked in some of the same seawater. So it was really a good evening. We talked about a lot of stuff, and it was really good. Rain country, and if you think yourself better, you will be. Oh, absolutely. Yes. Oh, yes. Jewel says the Ranger was the last ship her dad was on before he passed. Nice. So we do have a Ranger connection. Because Yoda's a daughter of a USS Ranger dad too.
Now, when you said Rangers, I thought you were talking about like real soldiers, like the Army Rangers, but I'm mistaken.
No, the USS Ranger, which packs more punch than all the Rangers put together. Oh my gosh, just jealous.
Keep wearing your skirt.
You're just jealous. I wonder, is it going to be cold when we're in Tennessee?
Who knows?
I might take my kilt just to show off my legs.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, guys, listen. Thanks for showing up. The chat definitely made it worthwhile in my book. I don't know about you, Tag, but it definitely.
Oh yeah,
definitely made it worthwhile. If you're not subscribed to Tag's channel, go over there and subscribe to his. They do some great videos, and I ask if you guys find things like this enjoyable, subscribe to our channel. Came to the realization that if you don't ask, they may never subscribe. So I just decided to start asking again. Share this if you know somebody that might benefit from what we said or might find what we said entertaining. Go ahead and share it with them. Hit the notification bell on both our channels. You might get a notification. I don't know. Doesn't hurt though. You know what? Hold on. Put what Lucy just set up. Where's his kilt? Please take a pic. You know what? I wore a kilt at the last preparedness festival, and somebody decided that they did not want to be there. They wanted to go do a different festival.
I got a question about kilts.
Okay, ask.
Are you a kilt expert?
I'm knowledgeable. I'm not. I don't know if I'd call myself a kilt.
Okay, so what I was curious about is back in the 1600s when the English outlawed pants, armor, and weapons from the Scottish, and then they were forced to wear kilts moving forward. Was that then a symbol for slavery?
Actually it was backwards. Actually, they outlawed the Highlanders from wearing their kilts because it was a act of rebellion.
Yeah, but that was later. That was in the 1700s, right?
Mm-hmm.
Were the English outlawed that? Wasn't it first a symbol of slavery, or did I mistake that?
No, it was a 9 yard. Yeah, no, it wasn't a sign of slavery. No. In fact, it's always been a sign of rebellion. Look, man, you can't go look at the Highlanders and tell me that they weren't real men. Tell me that they were not strong men.
I wanted you to educate me on history. That was all. I was just trying to get a clear understanding. That's all. So I don't wear skirts.
Well, neither do I. So we're in the same boat. Dude, seriously, if I could afford a 9 yard kilt, I would get one. But those things cost. The last time I looked, one made out of real tartan is like $1,500, and there's no way on God's green earth I'm paying $1,500 for 9 yards of any cloth. whatever kind it is,
Mhm.
you know.
No.
So. Oh, okay. Now that you've been able to make fun of me for my ancestry, folks, listen. Again, thanks for showing up.
Yep.
Go out, be better tomorrow than you were today. And Tag, what should they do?
Hold the line. Don't give an inch, and go live a life done free.
Amen. Everybody take care.
See you guys.